So you're thinking about buying or selling in Orange Beach, Alabama, Gulf Shores, and the surrounding areas. Well, today I am going to discuss a very important topic with you guys. If you are looking at investment properties to buy or sell in Orange Beach or Gulf Shores, today I am actually going to go over a condo buying and selling class. So this is definitely going to be one you're going to want to check out. So let's get to it. Hey guys, if this is your first time to the channel, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe button, and ring the little bell so you can be one of the first ones to learn everything there is to know about the current market conditions in Gulf Shores, Orange Beach, and surrounding areas. My name is Aileen Fountain. Along with my partner Andy Hollis and our entire team, we do these videos each and every week just to be informative, just to let you know what it's like to live here, vacation here, and own property here. So whether it's 9 days or 90 days from when you're thinking about buying or selling, give us a call. Shoot us a text, email us, set up a Zoom. We'd love to meet with you face to face. We get calls, texts, and emails from people just like you every single day, and we absolutely love it. So as I mentioned, I did this, actually called it a condo buying class for the state of Alabama for eXp Realty. And, spent a lot of time on this content. And, this isn't going to be a short video, but it's going to be a very informative video. If you're buying or selling an investment property, specifically a condo here along the Gulf Coast, specifically along the Alabama coast, there is so much information and details and things that you need to either know or be aware of or know to ask. Again, Alabama is a buyer beware state. And so it can be very, very tricky purchasing a condo in our market. So you definitely are going to want to listen to this content that I have prepared for you guys today. So let's get to it. So brief introduction. If you don't know already, my name is Aileen Fountain. I've got 21 years of selling experience here in Orange Beach and Gulf Shores and surrounding areas. We are focused here, Orange Beach, Gulf Shores, Foley markets specifically. We've got a lot of experience in this specific market, and I want to share a lot of things that I have dealt with over the years. And I'm gonna go over a quick agenda with you. Understanding the market, condo specific due diligence. That's going to be a big one. Financing and insurance challenges. That's another big one that you're definitely going to want to pay attention to. We're going to go over some short-term rentals and HOA rules. And then lastly, we are going to go over contract considerations and common pitfalls that you're going to want to make sure that you stick around to the end so you pick up all the common pitfalls and avoid those. If you watched my earlier video on the current market conditions for investment properties, specifically short-term rentals, you already know what I'm about to tell you. We are currently experiencing very high levels of inventory, specifically in the condo market, in the short-term condo rental market, and also in the short-term rental housing market. This particular class is geared towards condo buying and selling and all the challenges that are involved with that. Right now, sellers, listen up. If your property is sitting, one of the reasons is because of the high inventory, but the other reason is, let's face it, the rental numbers don't actually math out anymore. You've got rising condo association fees. You have rising insurance costs, both residential and condo, rising cleaning fees, rising carrying costs, interest rates are higher, and rental numbers are not necessarily down, which is kind of the narrative that everybody is saying right now, that rental numbers are down. That's not actually true. Rental numbers have just returned to the pre-COVID numbers. And so really rentals just return back to what they were before COVID. So it's not necessarily that they're down so much as they are back to being non-inflated post-COVID. So now that could change, as the market continues, as next rental season rolls out. So much going on in the world right now. So that could change, and we'll obviously update you as that materializes. But the reality is that the rental numbers are not bad. They're just fine. But the problem is you bring the rental numbers back down to reality. Now you have rising fixed costs, insurance, association fees, capital assessments, other assessments. Taxes are higher. Property taxes are higher because the valuations are higher. So the tax bill's higher. And then you bring the rental numbers down. Now for a buyer to come in and pick this property up, they've now got to pay a higher interest rate as well. So you factor all of that in, not only will it not math, but in many, many cases, you will have a negative cash flow. And that's obviously going to be determined by how much money you're putting down. But I'm talking about even putting 20, 25% down, which normally has been the magic number here to make an investment work, will now negatively cash flow. So now you're thinking either cash buyer or somebody putting 40, 50% down. But the reality is that, buyers are not going to do that. They're not going to buy something that doesn't make financial sense. So sellers, you need to really be aware of how your numbers shake out on your property. And that's going to be a big telltale on why it's not selling or why it's sitting on the market. All right, next up, I want to discuss real briefly the seasonality of our market. I think the majority of people already know this, but our big selling season is right after the first of the year. Properties start coming on February and March. Our big selling season is the spring because everyone wants to capitalize on the summer rentals. Why is that so important? Well, because you don't want, if you buy a property in the off season in the fall and you've missed the summer, you are probably going to be running in the red all fall, all winter. Spring will start to bring a little bit money back in, and then you don't actually start turning a profit, a significant profit, until the summertime. So if you go ahead and just right out of the gate, you're running in the red, it can be very challenging to catch up after that. So that's why our market has always been so strong in the spring. And look, we sell properties all year long. So there's plenty of people that come down in the fall and buy a property, but just understand the numbers and how those shake out, whether you're selling or buying. You're going to want to crunch those numbers and make sure you're comfortable. If you're getting a good enough purchase price or you're getting a good enough deal, and you know that you're probably getting this good deal because it's off season, it may not matter. So it can all shake out, but just understand the seasonality of it. This is my personal opinion. You're not going to find this stat on the internet anywhere, but my personal opinion is 75% of the buyers that buy in our market, in this Gulf Shores Orange Beach market, are looking for a short-term rental property that they can come down and utilize themselves 2 to 3 times a year and rent it out the rest of the year. They are looking for that property to break even, sometimes make a little bit of money, depending on how much money they're putting down, or sometimes they're okay with losing just a little bit of money because they know they're going to vacation in it and they know they're going to use that property. So they're okay in that scenario a lot of times too. But right now, very, very challenging to get that to all work out. But that's how I have felt for many years. 75% of those buyers fall into that category. Certainly with the market shift, I would not say that right now currently. Currently, it is more residential homes, people moving to the area, people still maybe purchasing a second home, that kind of thing, but not seeing a lot of investment buyers right now. Again, sellers, I hope you're hearing this. All right. I want to talk briefly too about location types. Our condo complexes, we've got Gulf front, we have non-Gulf front, and we have inland. So typical rule of thumb is you've got to be within 1 to 2 blocks of the beach to be able to short-term rent. That is, there are anomalies out there. That's not across the board, but that is a very typical rule of thumb. If you're inland, chances are you are not going to be able to short-term rent in that complex. There's a couple exceptions, of course. So one exception that I have seen in our market the last couple years, last 2 to 3 years, is the single-family residential coastal cottage that is gold fortified. There's a lot of these subdivisions all up and down West Beach, East Beach, and Orange Beach. And these subdivisions have been incredibly popular. They typically have subdivision pools. Most of them have beach access and deeded beach access, and they're coastal charm, and they're brand new, so the insurance is not as high, so they're getting an insurance break. The HOA fees are not high on them either. So those have tended to be the better investment the last few years. Also, the rents are pretty good on them as well. So overall, that has been where the math has been the best, is that particular type of inventory. So we've done quite a lot of those in the last 3 years. All right, I'm going to talk about market complexity, understanding how complex this market is here. We've got 21 miles of sandy white beaches here between Gulf Shores and Orange Beach on the Alabama coast. And we've got approximately 70 condo complexes. They are all going to vary in age, size, condition, property management quality. And so understanding all of those different buildings and those dynamics can be very challenging. We've got over 7,000 active Airbnb listings right now. So understanding our market is very challenging. So between the 70 plus condo complexes that we have, every one of them has its own set of dynamics. Understanding all the subdivisions up and down Beach Road that allow short-term rentals, because some of them don't. Understanding all of that dynamic, it's a very hyper-local market. Navigating through that can be very challenging if you don't truly understand that inventory. So please make sure that whoever you are working with really understands this market. So, somebody an hour away may not truly know this market, even if they've been in Baldwin County for their whole life. The Eastern Shore is a very different dynamic, very different market from here. Even Foley, very different dynamic, very different market there from the Gulf Shores, Orange Beach coastal market. So we're going to move on to condo specific due diligence. This is a big one. You're going to want to, and I always tell my buyers, look, when we get in this, we get under contract, we are going to have due diligence to review everything there is to about this condo complex, and we are going to dive into that and make sure that this complex is solid, make sure that you don't get blindsided with assessments. Of course, there is no 100% surefire guarantee. It even happened to me when I bought my condo. I spent an hour on the phone with the board president who promised there would be no assessments. Guess what? My first year of ownership, I had an assessment. So I was not happy about that at all. It does happen. But what you can't do is not do the proper due diligence. So first things first, we've got to collect the condo association documents. Here in Alabama, very challenging to get those when you're not under contract. There's some other challenges getting them too, but I'm going to get to that in just a minute. But some of the important ones, and this isn't the entire list, I have an entire list of documents that we will request. The important ones, the declarations and bylaws, those are very, very lengthy. I typically do not read those for the buyer or review those. I do send them to the buyer and let them review them. But there's some additional documents that are very, very important. The most recent approved condo budget, very important. The most recent balance sheet, very important. And I'm going to come back to some of the details that are key on that. If there has been a reserve study done, I will also review that. And of course, send to the buyer for them to review as well. That's not the norm, but I have seen a few, and it was very, very refreshing to have that reserve study to review. And then you're also going to want the 2 most recent board meeting minutes and homeowners meeting minutes. And so you're going to want to read through those minutes. That set of documents I also review, because Although I'm not an I'm not an accountant, I'm not a perfect expert in any way, but I have read through these so many times over the years, and I will come up with a whole list of questions, and then I discuss with the buyer. I'm like, hey, what are your questions? Okay, here's my questions, and then from there we go about trying to get those questions answered. Sometimes that can be pretty challenging because property managers down here are very busy. They're often hard to get a hold of. Board members, those are who I typically find are the best to talk to. They seem to be the most knowledgeable, especially if they've been sitting on the board for a while. But even they can be hard to get a hold of because guess what? Most of them don't live here. Most of them have full-time jobs. So you got to kind of really be diligent with that and stay after it. So very important stuff there. Next up is the insurance certificate. If you are getting a loan, your lender is going to require that. So we will definitely be getting a copy of both homeowners and flood for your lender. But also, if you're not getting a loan, we want to take a look at those policies and check those coverages. So let's move on to document access. I told you I was going to come back to this one. So they can be difficult to obtain between the listing agent, the management company, and sometimes there's just flat out a lack of urgency to get it to you. And so that the combination of those factors can delay getting those documents. So you definitely have to stay on top of it. I ask for them immediately so that I already put them on notice that we want these documents. And if you are using an out-of-area agent or you're not using our Baldwin County contract, you want to be very careful because there's a lot of verbiage that are built into our contracts that protect the buyer, specifically as it pertains to review of condo docs. So you're going to need some kind of a condo addendum if you use an out-of-area contract. And it's very, very important, the wording of this. And this is how ours reads, and it's very important. The seller has 5 business days to get this list of documents over to you. And then you have 5 business days from receipt to review them. So that is, it's important to know. But the important part of how that is worded is that, let's just say they only get you the declaration and bylaws and the budget, but they don't get you the minutes or the balance sheet. Well, time is ticking, but you don't have all the documents. So now let's say 5 days later, they get you the extra documents. That starts the clock back over for you as the buyer. You still have 5 business days from receipt to review those. So if they don't get you all the documents, then that contingency remains open. And that's very important too if you're a seller. And if you're not doing your part to get those documents to the buyer, you need to understand that that contingency could potentially remain open until the day of closing. So that's a loophole to be aware of if you're a seller. Also, as a buyer, just know that, it's on them to get those documents to you. You don't have access to them. The seller does. Even the listing agent most times can't get those documents. It has to be the owner that gets them. So very important that you understand that that's on the seller to get those to you. Let's talk real quick about special assessments. I mean, you'd have to be living under a rock to not know that those have been a big deal. They have definitely, rocked our world since Hurricane Sally. Pretty much every building down here had some type of assessment, whether it was for the insurance deductible, whether it was for repairs, whether that weren't covered, or insurance assessments have been very common. Even before the storm, there was a number of buildings that had insurance assessments that were annual. So we see that on a much broader scale now. The annual insurance assessments, we see that in almost most buildings, honestly. There's also capital improvement assessments, other special assessments that can be tacked on there as well. So really, really important that you find those assessment information out because it will 100% affect your numbers. We are seeing, the word on the street is, we are seeing insurance come down. So a lot of associations are expecting those insurance assessments to come down as well. So that's some positive news there for you. Litigation, I've found that most of the litigation that went on against the insurance companies post Hurricane Sally have pretty much all been settled now, but it is a good idea to double check and make sure that there is no active litigation going on within the complex. All right, let's talk about rental restrictions real quickly. Most of your short-term rentals are going to have a 3-day minimum on them. Some will have a 7-day minimum, others will have a 30-day minimum, or can even have up to a 6-month or a year minimum. But most common that we see is a 3-day minimum. The ones that have a 7-day minimum, you need to really think about, because they will impact your overall rentals. It will impact your overall rentability as the full year. Won't impact your summer rentals, your peak season summer rentals so much. A lot of people do weekly rentals during the summer anyway, but it will impact your spring and fall rentals for sure. So something to be aware of. Pet policies, I get this question all the time. People who have pets, and typically owners are allowed to have dogs and pets in general. Renters are typically not allowed to have them. I mean, pretty much, I don't know any condo complex down here, short-term rentals, that allows renters to have dogs. Some boards will even have an approval process that the pet has to be approved. Some of them have weight limits. So, you know, if that is important to you, you definitely want to check on that, you know, as you're looking, understand that. And also understand, of course, you're going to get a better deal on something that is non-Gulf front that's across the street from the beach, but you're also not going to get as good of rentals. All right, next up, we are going to discuss financing and insurance challenges. This is another big one. First, we'll talk about financing, warrantable versus non-warrantable condos. Most condos along the Gulf Coast, along Alabama coast, are going to be non-warrantable. However, local lenders are going to be best equipped to handle these loans. We deal with this all the time, and I'm going to go into this in more detail here in a minute, but a lot of non-warrantable loans can be very challenging for out-of-town lenders. A lot of them do have products for non-warrantable, but once they really get into the loan process, they often find they can't do the loan. Key detail in all of this is Fannie Mae, about 2.5, 3 years ago, they quit buying loans that had any short-term rentals in them. So, you know, the condo could not have any short-term rentals whatsoever, or Fannie Mae would not buy the loan. So that eliminated a lot of options for a lot of lenders. So your big name brand lenders, your out-of-town lenders, your local hometown banker, when they're doing a conventional loan, they are planning to sell that off to Fannie Mae. Fannie Mae is not going to take the loan. And so best that they know that up front. Freddie will take them. And so a lot of our local lenders are able to sell to Freddie. There's also additional overlays inside of a particular company. So sometimes the company itself has overlays and rules that keep them or prevent them from being able to do the loan that our local lenders don't have. So a lot of behind the scenes dynamics involved with the lending of condos down here at the beach. So very important. You know, we deal with this all the time. It is a big problem. Everybody who's been down at the beach for a long time has dealt with a nightmare deal involving an out-of-town lender. Some of us have dealt with many nightmare deals with an out-of-town lender. If you're a buyer, you might get pushback if you want to use your hometown banker or your hometown lender that has told you they can do this loan. When you present your offer and your pre-qualification letter, if the listing agent's been around the block for a while, they're going to go, oh, who's this lender? And they're going to start asking a lot of questions, and they're going to give you pushback. So just know that their concerns are valid, because we've dealt with it so much over the years. I can't tell you, we're actually dealing with one right now. One of you guys, a YouTube buyer, and wanted to use his out-of-state lender. And of course, we can only encourage. We can't tell you what to do. We can only give you the information and let you make that decision. We certainly are not going to steer you to any particular lender. We just want the process to be smooth for you, because we know that's, that a smooth transaction is a happy buyer. Once you have hurdles and problems at the 11th hour, everyone gets stressed out. Listing agent gets mad at the buying agent. Seller gets mad at the buyer. Everybody's mad at each other. Everybody's frustrated. It's a really tough scenario and situation to be in. So we try to avoid that. But again, if that's something that you want to do, we will help you the best way we can, and we will certainly try and navigate through all the hurdles and get it closed. Sometimes there aren't any hurdles. So all the local lenders that we work with here on condos, they all have quite a lot of options as far as products that they offer. They've got conventional products, they've got portfolio products, and a lot of times they have investor products. So typically, they can get it done through one of those avenues, and they are 30-year fixed rates. So just because you're not getting a quote conventional product does not mean you're not getting a 30-year fixed rate. So please understand that that those products are out there. I mean, I did a non-warrantable condo on my purchase, 30-year fixed rate. And this is a very challenging condo complex to get approved. Of course, I knew exactly who to call, and we got the loan closed in 30 days, and it was pretty smooth, actually. So just know that we've got a lot of products with our local lenders here. You're not going to get the rate that your hometown banker is quoting you. You're not going to get the rate that these national lenders that are quoting online. And they, of course, want your business, so they tell you they're going to do the loan. They quote you this attractive rate. So you want to give it a whirl because you want the better rate. The reality is that if you do find out that they can't do the loan, you find out the week of closing. And that's because there's a process with the loan. There's a step-by-step process that the underwriters and the loan process themselves are doing. Typically, the lenders have all these processes. Well, they don't start to underwrite the condo complex until halfway through. So they get, a week, 10 days into the process, and they start asking all these questions like, why are you asking me this now? It's 5 days before closing. Our lenders here locally, they start on the very front end on day one. They start trying to get the condo questionnaire done. They start getting all the stuff that has to be done to get a condo loan approved. So that's why if you're going to have a problem, you'll find out in the beginning, not in the end. Most of the times they can work through all the problems. So that is one really challenging part, is you're 3 days before closing and you're worried about switching utilities and how you're going to get down here for closing, and you want to stay for the weekend with your family, and you come to find out 3 days before closing, you're not closing. That can be very frustrating for everybody. And it's happened more times than I could tell you. So I had a lender tell me this once, and it stuck with me. He said they go to another lender because they've been quoted a better rate, but that lender was never going to be able to close the loan. So in reality, that rate was never real. And so, now when they go, well, get me to a local lender that can close this, and when everybody starts scrambling and we're all trying to save the deal, that lender is not going to be able to get you that rate, because that rate was never possible on this product. So he tells me, Aileen, I can't save rates and I can't save dates. Just know that that is why the rate is going to be higher with the local lender, because it is a different product. It is a different animal, and you really want somebody who is entrenched in that and does those types of loans all day, every day. We are going to move on to down payments, because this is another key detail. Most condo lenders down here want to see you put 25% down. Why? It's because it changes the condo approval process from what's called a full review to a limited review. Limited review is much easier to get approved and much easier to get closed. If you put anything down less than 25%, if you put 23% down, then you are going to undergo, the condo complex, not you, the condo complex is going to undergo what's called a full review. It is an 8-page condo questionnaire versus a 3. It's a lot of extra questions. It's a lot of extra. The likelihood of that condo complex getting approved for final financing and getting the loan finally approved goes down substantially. So local lenders understand that, and they're like, for the 5%, it's not worth it, because you also are going to get a better rate and fewer points when you put 25% down. If you're going to put less than 25% down, you are going to pay a higher rate and you're going to have more points. So all in all, it's just not worth it for that 5%. And so they understand that and they explain all that to you. And so plan on, if you want to buy a condo at the beach, plan on putting 25% down for those reasons. Now, if you're going to buy a single family short-term rental, 20% is perfectly fine. We do those all day long and there are no issues with that whatsoever. I'm actually showing property on Saturday to somebody who's only going to put 10% down. Now, you will have PMI at 10% down. Obviously, they have factored that out and they're comfortable with that. All right, let's talk about insurance. The condo itself is going to have a master insurance policy, and that is going to cover the exterior of the building, the common areas, the amenities. I like to find out when that policy renews each year for a couple reasons. Number one, I want to know, because if it's renewing soon, you're going to find out, you're likely going to be able to find out what the new insurance assessment is going to be, if there is one, and most of the time there is. So if that is coming down, then you can plan for a lower insurance assessment. And sometimes we negotiate the seller to pay for that anyway, but still, it's important to know if you can, if it's renewing soon, for that very reason. The second reason is if it's going to renew anytime close to closing, it can delay your closing because the lender is going to want to see that updated policy before they close on the loan. That's kind of a key little detail that a lot of people don't know. All right, here's another one. Buyers, you're going to need what's called an HO6 policy. This is an additional policy that is for your specific unit, and it is going to cover the walls in. It's going to cover your contents, big one. It's going to cover your liability. If you're renting short-term, you definitely want liability insurance. Even if you aren't renting short-term, you're still going to want liability insurance. It will cover loss of use, and it will cover special assessments. Now, on the assessment side, it's very specific on what assessments they will cover and what they won't. So you want to talk to your insurance agent about that. Once again, we prefer to use our local insurance agents and companies down here at the beach that are well-versed in this type of coverage and know exactly what type of coverage that you need versus, going to a big name insurance company that may not know exactly what type of insurance you need on that HO6 policy. These policies are not expensive at all. They range anywhere from $700 to $1,500. So not expensive at all. They are going to be based on, size. If you're looking at a 1-bedroom, you may only be paying $700 or $800. If you got a 3 or 4 bedroom, maybe more. I have a 4-bedroom and my policy is like $700. So this is not a big expense. All right, guys, on the flood insurance, again, the condo association will be carrying the flood insurance. If you are getting a loan, the lender is going to require that document and they're going to want to see that document. Just verify if you are paying cash, verify that flood insurance in place, because you don't want to have to get that policy separate on your own. A lot of the big companies won't even insure down here. So I get all the time like, oh yeah, Aileen, you were right. My insurance agent in my hometown won't write the insurance down there. And so I've got, always got 3 or 4 insurance agents here locally, always recommend a couple quotes, but they're typically better prices and they know the types of coverages that you need on that single family as well as the HO6 policy. You won't need an HO6 policy on the single family, just on the condo. Condo tells, I am not going to spend a lot of time on this topic. There's only a handful of true condo tells here at the beach, despite what your hometown banker may tell you. Very rare that something is a true condo tell down here. So if you are looking at a particular complex and you ask your hometown banker if they're able to do that and they go, oh no, we can't do that, it's a condo tell, call me, because chances are it's not a condo tell. So yeah, we're not gonna spend a lot of time on that one because it's just probably not even going to be a part of an equation if you're buying at the beach. All right, let's talk about the rental side of things. Your rental income is going to depend on various factors. It's going to depend on how often you use it, what's the owner usage look like, Even more specifically than that, how often is the owner using it during peak season? So that's going to affect rental numbers. Your management quality, how good your property manager is going to affect your rentals. I mean, we've got some companies down here that as soon as I see that company name, I'm like, oh yeah, these rentals are probably not going to be what they should be. How well does the property show online? Does it need updates? Is it turnkey? Does it have flat screen TVs hanging on the wall? Does it have, how does it appear online? Does it need updates? Sometimes they just need a little bit of decor. $1,500 can completely change the look of a condo, and doesn't cost that much. You're talking, a lot of these condos are 1,200 square feet. So a lot of times you can really update them for a very small budget and completely change the way it appears online. And that alone can improve the rentals. Having the right property manager, making sure that it is shows up well online, making sure it is on numerous rental platforms, not just one or two. All of that is going to impact your bottom line and your income potential on the rentals. Occupancy trends. Okay, guys, our peak season is Memorial Weekend till the kids get back to school. So typically August 1st. So that whole Memorial Weekend till August 1st, we are slammed down here. I mean, it is just back to back to back to back to back. So if you want to come down and look at property during that time frame, you're definitely going to want to make sure that you have lined everything up with your agent, that you have everything squared away to get into the properties, because you will be dealing with rental check-ins and check-outs if you're going to be looking at property during that time frame. I'm actually showing this Saturday and got into just about everything I wanted to, because Saturday is a big turnaround day. So typically, if I'm showing property during season, I'm hoping to do it on a Saturday, because you got that 10 a.m. window to 4 p.m. check-in that you can get buyers in to look at properties. Seasonally, our seasonal rentals can be affected. You got spring break, and then we have annual festivals, we have concerts, we have events that are here all year long. So those are going to sprinkle in and impact your rentals during the off season. We have fall break. Fall break's been phenomenal down here for the last decade. We get a lot of people that come down for fall break. So there's going to be a lot of rentals that you're going to get outside of peak season. And Gulf Shores and Orange Beach does a great job of holding events, holding festivals, holding things down here that people want to come in town for. So you do get rentals year round. And then of course the snowbirds come down in the winter, and typically they start coming down in November, and they are normally leave March, April of spring, right when the spring breakers are coming into town. So I would say on average, the snowbirds are here December to March. As far as management goes, we typically see 18 to 20% is pretty much the norm on the fees that we see being charged. Self-managed rentals, obviously they save the 20%, and they tended to also bring in a little bit higher numbers. Of course, no one's going to care more about your property than you, but I would say 90% of the people that I work with do not have the ability to manage the rental themselves. So if you're in that boat, 18 to 20% is something to plan on for management fees. All right, and circling back to the most recent balance sheet of an association, very important that you do get that document. Sometimes I have a challenge getting that, but there's some key things. There's a lot of key things that I'm looking for when I'm looking at that balance sheet. It will tell you how much money is in the operating account, and more importantly, it will tell you how much money is in the reserve account. So I definitely always like to know what that figure is. And that reserves, it just depends on how big the building is, how new the building is. And so that's going to kind of determine, what a healthy reserve looks like for that building. If a complex has a healthy reserve, very good sign. If their reserves are low, then that could indicate that they are going to either do a capital assessment to build the reserves up. And it could be one of those things where they've got a 2 or 3 year plan to build that reserves back up, and you're going to see that capital assessment multiple years in a row. So you want to be aware of that. Obviously, if there is a healthy reserve there, very strong indication that the health of that condominium's financials is good. If they have low or no reserves, that could be a major red flag. And so you definitely are going to want to know that before purchasing in a particular complex. I was doing a deal, I was representing the buyer, and the listing agent was a dual licensed agent primarily in another state. And so I'm asking for all the documents. He had sent over the budget and the minutes. So I reached out to him. I said, hey, can you send me the most recent balance sheet? And so he said, sure. And he would get back to me that. So he sends me the budget again. And I'm like, hey, thank you for sending the budget again. I'm looking for the balance sheet. Can you send over the balance sheet? Oh yeah. I'll get back to you on that. So he sends over the budget for a third time. And at that point, I realized that he has no idea the difference between the budget and the balance sheet, what I'm really asking him for. So I reached out to him again and I said, I need the balance sheet. I need the balance sheet. So he calls me and he's like, Aileen, I've sent it to you. I'm like, no, you sent me the budget. I need the balance sheet. So there's a difference. And so little concerning, he didn't know the difference between the two. But needless to say, I did eventually get the balance sheet and did get, all the things that I wanted to look at for my buyer, all those questions answered. And then of course, discussed that with the buyer, and we looked at the relevance of what was on that balance sheet. And so anyway, that's an important one. You definitely want to see the most recent balance sheet on an association. Another question I get all the time is in regards to the HOA or the condo fees. What all do they include? They pretty much include everything except for your power bill. Now there's some variations. Sometimes they include TV and internet. Sometimes they just include TV and not internet. Sometimes it's internet and not TV. So you definitely want to find out what all utilities are included. They almost always include water, sewer, trash. Most of them now do include TV and internet. And so, a lot of times you're just looking at the power bill as an extra expense, in addition to, of course, again, any additional assessments above and beyond, such as an insurance assessment, which is pretty typical, or even factoring in that HO6 policy into the equation as well. Those are going to be your extra costs above and beyond the condo dues and your power bill. So I get that question all the time. All right, guys, this is a key detail that I think most people either overlook, don't know, or don't convey to the buyer. Most of our short-term rentals are sold furnished. However, the cleaning companies own the linens, the towels, and post-COVID, they pretty much all own the comforters too. So if you are planning to switch rental companies, or you're planning to not honor the rentals, please know that the cleaning company is going to come in and remove all of those things prior to closing. Likewise, the property management company typically owns the front door lock. So they will also come in and take their door lock before closing. And then either the seller has got to put their old lock back on there, or responsible for getting a new lock on there and supplying you with a key. So a lot of times, before closing, we are working behind the scenes on details with the title company and with the listing agent to make sure we have parking passes, owner's closet keys, storage keys, keys to the front door, pool passes. Those are the details that can get lost. And then the owner gets down here and they're like, how do I get into the owner's storage? Well, we don't have a key. So that happens, that can definitely happen. And even sometimes you can do all that work and the owner's like, oh, I can't find that key, or I don't have that key, or whatever. So, but it is important to ask for those, because you do want those at closing. And another thing is, and this is something I have dealt with over the years, if you aren't going to honor the rentals, typically the property management company will make every effort to transfer those rentals out. Sometimes, depending on the seasonality of when you're closing, if it's peak rental season, a lot of times they can't get the renter moved because they don't have anywhere to move them to. So there are times where you do have to honor some rentals before you can either switch management companies or start occupying the unit as you desire. So know that little detail. You're going to want to, if you are going to keep the same property management company, go ahead and get the seller to, or the property management company to send you a copy of the contract so you can review that prior to closing. And so you know all the questions in terms of that contract with that management company if you're going to continue to use their services. All right, licenses and taxes. All short-term rentals down here are going to require a business license. You will need that business license in the city in which the property is in. So if the property is in Orange Beach, you're going to need an Orange Beach business license. Same with Gulf Shores. And you also will need a business license for each property that you own down here. So if you own 3 in Orange Beach, you've got to have a business license for each one of those. And then let's talk about the taxes that get associated to the short-term rentals. So the lodging tax now for both Gulf Shores and Orange Beach is 16%. And that 16% gets applied to the rent, cleaning fees, and parking passes of a rental. So know that that 16% is going to be applicable to every booking. And now Airbnb, VRBO, they already account for all that. They pretty much kind of handle all that for you and send the taxes in to the appropriate areas of the state. That 16% is a lot. It used to be 13%. One caveat to that is the Fort Morgan area. Fort Morgan is unincorporated and their tax is only 6%, but please know that you do not get the city services down Fort Morgan. And also Fort Morgan residents do not have access to to Gulf Shore City school system. They're zoned for Foley. They can get pay a tuition to go to Gulf Shores, but you definitely would want to know that beforehand because the city of Gulf Shores is at capacity, so you may not be able to get a variance or pay the tuition to go to the city of Gulf Shores. All right, last but not least, we are going to go over contract considerations and common pitfalls. So as far as the HOA review, we already went through that in detail. You're definitely going to want to have all the condominium disclosures, all the condominium docs for review. That's a big one. Aside from the buyer doc review, our market typically allows for 10 business days for an inspection period. So that inspection period, I mean, you can perform any inspection you want to. You can perform any due diligence that you want to within those 10 business days. So there is a pretty ample time to talk to everyone that you need to, do everything you need to, assuming that you're able to get all the documents in a timely manner. Plenty of time to do all that. So, all right, special assessments. Our contracts are very specific and they clarify who is responsible for what. So once again, if you are not using a Baldwin County contract or a local agent in our area, you are going to want to make sure under additional provisions that you put language in there that is going to protect you as far as how the insurance assessments are going to be handled. The title company is going to need to know this information as well. They need to know who's paying for what. So you're going to want to be aware of current assessments and upcoming assessments. One pitfall that could happen is if an assessment, well, two. One is if the assessment's been approved, but it's not yet due yet, you got to clarify who is responsible for paying for that because both buyer and seller are aware of it, but it's not due yet. So who's responsible for paying that? That's negotiated out. The second pitfall that you need to be aware of is if there was an assessment that the seller didn't know about, was not approved yet, wasn't on the books, but got approved during the contract period. So what if an assessment was approved while you guys were under contract? Now both seller and buyer are a little blindsided by this assessment. That is probably not likely going to happen, but it could happen. And so you would want to kind of just be aware of anything like that that could pop up during the contract period. All right, furnishings. Most lenders do not want to see anything about personal property in a contract. So how do you get around that? Well, we utilize a bill of sale to properly convey and legally convey the contents of that unit from the seller to the buyer. So that's something that you definitely want to know if you're getting a loan. All right, so deferred maintenance. This is something that I pay close attention to every time I'm on site showing property. Capital improvements do not typically come up unplanned. They are typically something that the association is aware of, something that they plan for, and something that they are going to assess for and have repairs and things done to the building. I'm always paying very close attention to the condition of the building. I'm looking at, the paint. I'm looking at the exterior. I'm looking at the railings. I'm looking at the doors. I'm looking at the sliders. Those are very expensive assessments. They're going to be planned for. They'll probably be talked about in the minutes. So I'm always looking at that. But if I visually see old sliders or paint that or a building that looks like it needs to be painted in the next year or two, or any major maintenance thing that I visualize, I'm going to be asking those questions. And I want to know, like, hey, are you guys planning to replace these doors anytime soon? I mean, that could be a $40,000 assessment. You do not want to get blindsided with that. So that's an important one. The good news is so many buildings had those replaced after Hurricane Sally. So, or they had already been replaced prior to Hurricane Sally. So I don't see that as often as I used to, but you still got to look at that. I mean, the roof, that's another one. How old is the roof? Most of the roofs also got replaced after Hurricane Sally, which is more good news. But if it wasn't replaced, or they are talking about replacing a roof, but that could be $400,000. That could be a huge assessment. So those are definitely things that you want to be paying attention to, and definitely things that I'm always looking out for when I'm on site showing property. All right, so to sum all of this up, do your due diligence when buying a condo. Verify everything. Verify the income, verify the expenses, verify the assessments, talk to the property manager and or board member, read over all the documents, and just make sure that you verify everything before you close on a condo here at the beach. That is going to wrap up this condo buying and selling class for you guys. It was certainly geared more towards buyers, but there were definitely some really golden nuggets in there for sellers as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed this content. Sorry it was a long one, but I definitely think it is so worth it to know all these things if you are thinking about buying or selling here in Gulf Shores or Orange Beach. Hope you enjoyed this content. Let us know if we missed anything that you have more questions on. Drop us a comment. We're happy to help. We're happy to answer that. If there is anything that you can think of, any feedback you have, we love to hear it. And until next time, we hope to see you around town.
I get flip-flops and your shades that hit the sand. Where the Gulf breeze blows, it's a wonderland. Orange Beach living, oh, it feels so right. From sun